California legislators, law enforcement officials, and advocates say there has been progress in targeting sex traffickers themselves, but not enough has yet been done to punish those who purchase sexual acts from minors. The jury has acquitted Carlos Reales Dominguez of 2 counts of first-degree murder and remained in a deadlock in a 10-2 vote on 2 counts of second-degree murder. Several subspecies of giraffes are considered endangered, and the Sacramento Zoo is doing their part to ensure that these beautiful animals stick around for generations to come. Good evening, Eric. Those allegations you mentioned have led to this being the 10th grand jury investigation in 35 years. Wineries are the economic engine of Lodi, and over 20% of California wine production comes from right here. But those we spoke with today say several variables have led to this being one of the most challenging times producers have faced in at least 3 decades. All U.S. military personnel have taken an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those we spoke with today say that very promise is what brought them out here today. The family of the 2 brothers attacked by a mountain lion in El Dorado County last year have taken their grief to the Capitol in support of a new Senate bill that could potentially save others from a similar tragedy. The Jewish and LGBTQ communities faced the highest number of reported hate crimes across the state last year. Now, this incident is expected to set them back roughly $10,000, but the total damage from all of these instances has now reached a whopping $200,000. Photos and documents take us back in time to Cesar Chavez's visits, as well as the impact that Mexican farm workers have had across Yolo County. So for many, these few extra cents might not seem like a lot, but it certainly adds up over time. Today, state and local officials came together to discuss their efforts to bring the Golden State back into a golden era with fewer crime and better drug addiction treatment. The new law divides California sex offenders into 3 tiers based on the severity of their crimes. Lower risk offenders have a chance to petition the court to be removed from the registry after 1 or 2 decades. This means the registry might not be able to tell you if someone has previously committed a sex offense. Chris Orr works in the child assault unit at the Sacramento County DA's office.
People that have touched children inappropriately can now be off of the registry. And so that exposes the public to having more difficulty to figure out who those people might be.
That includes repeat offenders like 81-year-old Kenneth Lawrence and 58-year-old Kevin Gibson. They're 2 of 12 individuals that were busted by law enforcement in a July sting, dubbed Operation Sentinel.
It's made it more difficult.
Dustin Silva is a captain with the Sacramento Sheriff Internet Crimes Against Children Unit. He was a major part of that effort and other ongoing work to apprehend child predators.
What we found is in a couple of those cases where we actually arrested individuals who had been sex offenders and registrants as sex offenders, that they were no longer registered.
They were caught by law enforcement after arranging to meet an undercover detective to engage in various sexual acts with children. They were indicted by a federal grand jury in October for several alleged offenses. Gibson was previously convicted of 2 felony counts of sexually abusing a child under 14 in 1991 and successfully petitioned the court to be removed from the registry in September 2023. Lawrence had multiple convictions, including sexual battery, dating back to 1966, 1984, and 1997. Under the new law, he was no longer registered, and his offenses only require a 10-year registration. The sheriff's office also says he admitted to engaging in sexual acts with multiple children and had never been caught.
So we're going after the worst of the worst, right? These are child predators. So to make those investigations more difficult on us, yeah, absolutely. We were, taken aback by it for sure.
Orr says the law makes it hard for prosecutors to keep convicted offenders on the registry.
There's been some hearings in Sacramento where we've challenged that and said this is inappropriate to remove this person's registration. The circumstances that the legislature gave us for allowing us to oppose it are very, very limited.
Placer County District Attorney Morgan Geyer says allowing people to be removed from the sex offender registry can be dangerous.
The whole point is for the community to know the dangers associated with people who are released. The tiering system makes it easier for those to get off. Should there be some sort of process by which someone can attempt to get off of it, perhaps, but I don't think that the law has struck the appropriate balance at this point.
As of January 10th, the California Department of Justice says 8,169 sex offenders registration was terminated as a result of this law, and that number fluctuates daily. We also asked the DOJ for the number of people who were removed from the list and reconvicted of a sexual offense. They requested nearly $5,000 from our station to provide that number. Fox 40 also contacted district attorney personnel across several counties, including Sacramento, who tell us they don't have this data. The Sacramento Sheriff's Office says this law enables abuse.
Any tools that get taken away from us to help target these people is, just allowing them to continue with what they're doing.
Some view the law positively and say it's long overdue. Several other states have similar provisions in place for offenders to petition the court to be removed from the registry. Multiple sexual assault advocacy groups and DAs support the intent of the law, saying the previous registry requirements led to wasted resources by requiring law enforcement to monitor low-level offenders. California Senator Scott Wiener says he introduced the bill, in part, to address what he says was the unfair treatment of LGBTQ residents who were allegedly targeted for same-sex conduct.
This reform will make the sex offender registry a more useful tool to law enforcement to keep our community safe.
A defense attorney who has previously represented alleged sexual offenders says some people deserve a second chance.
I think that the current regime, which allows for people to get off the registry after the specified period of time, is preferable to having just everybody register for their whole life.
Gray wolves have returned to California after a century and are multiplying at a staggering rate. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife believe there are at least 7 packs.
It's an incredibly inspiring story, right? That wolves, the symbol of the wild, can reclaim the state, their native land.
However, this enthusiasm isn't felt by all. The Modoc, Sierra, and Plumas County Board of Supervisors have declared a local state of emergency due to the confirmed presence of wolves in this cattle grazing mecca. Sierra County Sheriff Mike Fisher says they've reached a tipping point. He sent a letter to state officials, including the governor, requesting permission to declare wolves a public safety risk and authorize their removal.
The one thing that I am not advocating for, nor have any of the sheriffs that I've spoken with, is, mass killing of wolves. It is the ability for the local law enforcement to deal with a specific animal that is causing havoc and to be able to euthanize that particular problem animal.
Dave Sticks is the owner of DS Ranch and says 30% of his calves did not breed last year, leading to a $300,000 loss. They are one of several cattle farms here, one of the community's largest sources of income. A UC Davis study found that cattle exposed to wolves have issues with eating, lactating, nursing calf, and pregnancy, which saw devastating repercussions.
It was anywhere from $1.4 to $3.6 million in total losses.
And with this spring comes the birth of more pups and calves.
The more predators you have, the more kills you're going to have.
DS ranchers moved their cattle back into the Sierras as of March 30th. And according to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, since then, there have been 6 confirmed wolf attacks on calves and at least 2 fatal wolf attacks on calves. And this year, Sticks says, has been significantly worse.
They just started tearing up calves. They had all these rips and teeth marks and all over them, which I've never seen. There's two of them out there.
In the 3 hours we spent at DS Ranch, we witnessed 2 gray wolves stalking cattle.
I see them.
Not once, but twice. Sheriff Fisher has since confirmed that 2 calves were attacked on the ranch while we were on scene.
We've had this place for about 30 years, and we really don't know at this point, we don't know whether it is to get out of here and sell it or what to do.
Rick Roberti is the president of the California Cattle Association.
The cattlemen are not the bad guys. We just want to be able to protect our private property.
The California Department of Fish and Wildlife's Wolf Compensation Plan has already awarded $3 million to ranchers. But a representative tells Fox 40 their hands are otherwise tied.
Gray wolves in California are listed as endangered species under both the federal and state Endangered Species Acts.
Any form of lethal removal without special authorization is illegal. The governor's office tells us they second CDFW. Paul Rowan with the Sierra County Board of Supervisors says state agencies are falling short.
They claim they want to collaborate and cooperate. Well, we're getting none of that currently.
Sheriff Fisher agreeing.
But I can also only hope that Sierra County isn't the first county that has a wolf-human wildlife encounter that results in either injury or death.
Reporting in Sierra and Plumas County, covering local news that matters. Juliette Smith, Fox 40 News.
Dear friends and family, I write this knowing my chances of survival are very slim. Mainly so I can encourage you to stand together.
This is the letter Nick Duckworth gave his father right before he went to Ukraine. Duckworth told him not to open it unless something happened to him.
He wanted to be somewhere he could make a difference.
And Duckworth did just that, make a difference and find his purpose in helping others.
His first job, he was rescuing animals. He's such an animal lover.
He eventually transitioned to become a medic in the Ukrainian army.
He had rescued around 3,000 civilians. Like, the Ukrainian government was sending them in areas that they would not send their own people to, to the front lines.
He's been a person that no matter how crazy of a thing it is, if he puts his mind to something, he's gonna get it done.
Duckworth's commander, who is still fighting on the front lines in Ukraine, and the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv say he was killed in action, running towards the crossfire to save his fellow soldiers.
Nick grabbed his gun, grabbed his gear, grabbed some guys, and they went to assist the position that was being assaulted.
When all resources ran out, he used his body.
He actually picked up 5, threw them on top of Lupa, and then put his body over, shielding them both from dying, ultimately giving his life for that.
The 2 young men he saved, both teenagers, had only met Duckworth hours earlier.
We miss his presence. We miss Nick a lot. Like I said, Nick was a brother of ours.
And in his last words to his friends and family,
I love you all. My life is and always has been forfeit, mainly because I value yours more than mine.
In Tuolumne, covering local news that matters, Juliette Smith, Fox 40 News. After more than 40 years and a 3-week-long trial, the jury has found 59-year-old Marvin Markle guilty of first-degree murder and use of a deadly weapon. His victim was 14-year-old Deanna Lynn Johnson. The year was 1982. Johnson's body was found on train tracks a block away from her home. 88-year-old Joseph Munoz, who is now retired, was the lead detective on the case.
Remember seeing her lying there with her head all bashed in with a big piece of concrete found on the side, and a lot of blood come from her head. Her head was just battered really bad.
Chief Deputy District Attorney Paul Sequeira handled the case.
There was more than 1 or 2 minutes of strangulation.
Officials say the young woman had attended a house party where she met Markle, who was then 17.
People involved in drinking beer, people involved in doing drugs. These are a lot of them. Most of them are teenagers.
The former detective says Markle had always been a lead suspect.
I was watching this guy like a hawk.
But the murder remained unsolved.
I always had like a heavy piano or something on my shoulders, thinking, I'm going to go to my grave, and this guy's still going to be out running around.
Part of the reason it went cold in the early 80s was the forensic technology wasn't where it was today.
That's until the case was picked back up in 2002. After the murder, police requested partygoers give them their clothing. Markle obliged after washing his items. And years later, the DNA that had been found on his shoes became a crucial piece of evidence.
Kind of ran a swab around the ridge inside as she pulled it apart and came up with a positive presumptive for blood, and then got some DNA off it. And it was the defendant's DNA.
The Department of Justice also found his DNA on the victim's fingernails. Markle was finally arrested in 2017. At the time, he was already serving a life sentence for the 2001 murder of then 41-year-old Shirley Platt. Munoz faced Markle in court when he testified and shares some of the other important testimony.
His own sister testifies that, he's telling his own mother, I killed a girl in Vacaville. She'd tell him to shut up.
The jury reached a guilty verdict on Thursday.
The weight that was on my shoulders for all these years, taken off. I felt so darn good.
Johnson's mother says her daughter can finally rest in peace. As of now, Markle's sentencing is set for May 16th. Reporting in Solano County, covering local news that matters, Juliette Smith, Fox 40 News. The jury has acquitted Carlos Reales Dominguez of 2 counts of first-degree murder and remained in a deadlock in a 10-2 vote on 2 counts of second-degree murder. Now, we also learned that jury remained in that deadlock for about a week. After 9 full days of deliberation, Judge Samuel McAdams reads the long-awaited verdict.
At this time, the court declares a mistrial.
Silence filled the courtroom with uncanny stillness and, for some, disappointment. Maria Bro is the sister of David Bro, the first victim in the stabbing spree. Just outside the courthouse, she tells Fox 40 she felt her brother, known in the community as Compassion Guy, smiling down on her today and believes the jury did an incredible job.
I think all the evidence was weighed the way it was supposed to be weighed.
Can I ask you what it was like to be in the same room as Dominguez for such a long period of time?
He's a human being, and we're all human beings.
A criminal defense attorney says the hung jury isn't entirely surprising.
When you have multiple mental health experts with degrees and that are qualified testifying that the person was not able to formulate intent and that they have substantial mental illness such as schizophrenia, if there's no contrary evidence to that, it's hard for a jury to disregard.
Just a few weeks ago, Dominguez admitted to stabbing all 3 victims, having believed they were supernatural shadows. The prosecution worked to prove that mental illness doesn't give you a free pass to murder 2 innocent people, and vehemently argued that the brutal stab wounds were carried out with premeditation and malice. The defense says no one can argue with a doctor's schizophrenia diagnosis. Both parties, however, choosing not to comment on the verdict.
The defense is definitely in a position of strength. They got an acquittal on a first-degree murder. But the prosecution is also in a position of strength because this case isn't over.
So what comes next? Rosenfeld says it's either a plea deal or a retrial. First-degree murder charges will no longer be considered. For the time being, Dominguez will remain in custody.
We're talking about the third quarter. There's still a lot more game to be played here.
And while the jury could not come to a unanimous decision on the verdict, they did conclusively choose not to speak on this matter. And that is the latest. Reporting live at the Yolo County Superior Courthouse, covering local news that matters. Juliette Smith, Fox 40 News. Hundreds of thousands of immigrants descended upon Northern California during the height of the 1848 gold rush. Among them were thousands of Jewish pioneers. It's a history that's often forgotten, and the Commission for the Preservation of Pioneer Jewish Cemeteries and Landmarks in the West work to keep it alive.
This is not only our history as Jews in California, but it is the history of California itself.
Freda Erling is on the board of the commission.
Historically ancient Jews who were lenders because we could not own land, we could not own businesses. But here in California, there was no such prejudice.
Many Jewish pioneers were miners. Others came here to establish businesses catering to miners. And you may be familiar with one of them.
Levi Strauss was a Jewish man who developed his jeans in order to have a durable wear for the miners.
To preserve a cemetery is to preserve history itself. And this group is preserving the history of Jewish cemeteries in Placerville, Sonora, Grass Valley, Nevada City, Jackson, McCallamy Hill, and Marysville.
If it's one thing that Jews know, it is death. And we have many rituals that surround it. And that is important for our people to be buried in consecrated ground, blessed by a rabbi, and maintained. So for us, it is a mitzvah, a blessing.
Here at the Marysville Cemetery, the commission is repairing the graves of the Katzenstein family. Cammie Brody is the 3 times great-granddaughter of Eugene and Marie Katzenstein, who were born in France and came here in 1852.
They were all very industrious individuals and very connected to community. Eugene opened up a restaurant and hotel in Marysville.
An 1858 newspaper clipping shows the establishment of the restaurant. And this is what the street looks like today. Jedediah Watson is a 6th-generation descendant of Jewish gold rush pioneers. Watson's family immigrated here from what was once Prussia following the 1848 revolution.
There were jobs that they couldn't have. There was property that they couldn't own. And so they were part of the revolution, and when the revolution failed, they were to blame. It was the blood libel of the 1850s.
Here, they were valued members of society.
My great-great-great-grandfather, Benjamin Nathan, had over 50 different mines in Grass Valley.
These old documents show the success of their other businesses, and these photos provide a small glimpse of the crowds they drew in.
One thing that my grandfather instilled in us was this pride. Not just the pride of being a Jew, but also being a pride of the gold rush.
Fellow board member Francis Coates echoes the importance of preserving this rich history.
I think current history indicates it's terribly important to have a cultural and historic memory.
Reporting in Marysville, covering local news that matters. Juliette Smith, Fox 40 News. You may be familiar with the Iron Dome, an invisible anti-missile defense shield powered across Israel that identifies incoming missiles. It immediately launches a counterattack to intercept those missiles before it can cause any harm, and has saved countless lives. And now, FireDome, an Israeli tech startup, is based on the same idea.
We create that dome of protection on your property, and essentially we prevent the fire from entering inside.
In fact, one of the founders of Iron Dome sits on the FireDome board.
It's a launcher that projects and launches capsules that are filled with fire retardant to a distance of about a quarter mile, which gives us coverage of about 100 acres. One layer of protection around the property is to create kind of a barrier. This is what happens when, for example, you see an airplane that disperses the red stuff.
FireDome CEO Gadi Benjamini says the second layer of protection addresses spot fires and ember showers. FireDome can help fire personnel focus on the fire front and worry less about the flying embers. This could have significantly helped firefighters battling the LA fires.
Embers that starts from one end of the neighborhood, and very quickly these embers fall on or land on different, on other houses, on rooftops, on vegetation, create more fires. What we do is detect them using cameras that we install on site. The camera sends a signal to the launcher launches a capsule to suppress this spot fire within seconds. It's like a battlefield. You're fighting an unpredictable enemy, the fire. You have to have attack tools, defense tools, intelligence on the fire.
And now FireDome is coming to Northern California. They're partnering with several vineyards and resorts to test the technology. One of Benjamini's NorCal partners is Seth Shallett.
If you're in fire tech, it's like a kid at Christmas, because there's so much happening there.
Shallett says that as more property is developed on undeveloped wildland, the risk of fires rises exponentially, and FireDome could in part be the answer to that problem.
FireDome has a number of fire ecologists and fire behavior analysts on board. They will do a map of your vegetation, your topography, the vegetation types, the slope, the fuel moistures, and help to predict the likely path of a wildfire.
Shalit says they eventually hope to mount the tech on a mobile unit that can treat a larger perimeter.